Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of our podcast, Play, Learn, Lead ECE Voices of NL. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Sonia. And this month we're going to talk about self care with our guest, Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Is there anything you would like to share with our viewers this month?
Sure. I'm really excited to talk about stress, about how we kind of handle stress. Um, I'm very aware of that, being ECE is a very difficult job. I do work with a number of ECEs and have worked with a number in the past. And I just think that everybody really needs to have good self care in order to maintain good physical and mental health.
Absolutely. And you talk about stress, especially in the field of early childhood. And there are so many emotional demands working in this field. Um, and when we're one of the biggest issues that we come across is the fact that the need for co regulation with the children does not discriminate.
Mhm.
No.
Um, it can happen at any point in the day, at the busiest moments, big transitions,
Mhm.
when staffing is low or any other situations are occurring in the room. Say if you have two staff, but you have three children out of 16 who
Mhm.
need your help co regulating. How do we balance that? It's a huge challenge in our
Absolutely.
day to day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that co-regulation is such an important skill that we teach children.
Hmm.
And my experience with ECEs, I'm not an ECE myself. I am a social worker, but I have had my own children in child care centers, and I've also worked with the Department of Education. With childcare services as a social worker, so coming into centers as a social worker. So I do have, some intimate knowledge about kind of what happens in childcare centers. But I do believe that ECEs are experts when it comes to helping children co-regulate. I think that your training really helps you understand development, which is a really important key piece of co-regulating and
Yeah.
helping children with
Mhm.
their emotions. The thing that I think that we need to remind ourselves is that co-regulation is really about mirroring our own emotional responses to things. So how do we handle something if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you are having a hard day already, if you have stress that's maybe even generated from outside of work, and then you kind of walk into the center and you have a number of children who are also having a very difficult day.
Mhm.
How you react to things will really impact the way that they are going to act and respond to different situations. So, our topic this month is all about self care. It's so important because you really can't pour from an empty cup. And
No.
if you want to help children kind of get to that place where they are making good choices, where they're able to name their emotions, where they use their coping skills, like all of these wonderful things that will help them long term, we need to be mindful of what place are we with our mental health, with our self care, how are we handling things. If you're feeling overwhelmed generally in life, and that could be from stress from work, it could be stress at home, it could be
Mhm.
anything really. We really don't, and it could be even your coworker might be having a hard day, and that might be affecting you having a hard day.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
all of these things come into play when you're talking about your own self-care and your emotional well-being, that helps you to regulate a child's emotions as well and mirror how to handle things appropriately. So, I say, like, it's hard to be calm in a situation like so co-regulation. Some of the beauty things that we would use that would be helpful would be like being calm, helping children kind of label their emotions, helping them navigate other ways of handling situations. But it's also responsive to the developmental stage that they're in. So,
Yeah.
Younger children need nurturing. They need sometimes a hug. Sometimes, they need other things. They need routine. So younger children need a lot of routine. All
Yes.
children need routine as
Mm.
well, but that helps to regulate younger children. Toddlers need to understand about rules and why they're important, safety for certain, but also labeling their emotion and to comfort them when they're upset. Um, and then
That
older
validation.
validation, absolutely.
Yeah.
So older children, they respond really well to a calming, soothing voice. But really, I don't know anyone who doesn't respond well
Yeah.
to a calming, soothing voice. We all need that.
Yeah.
And also, like helping children learn how to breathe is really, really
Mhm.
important.
Yeah.
So you know yourself if you are kind of your emotions are up here. We kind of talk about it as the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain in therapy. But like if you are kind of overwhelmed, if you're not feeling like you're in a good place, you're not breathing properly. You're not getting enough oxygen to your
No.
brain, and children are not either. So we encourage like pace breathing. So you take a deep breath in, you hold your breath for a couple seconds, and then you breathe out twice as long as you breathed in. That's a little bit challenging for a young child to do. We do 5 finger breathing, and you might have seen this before where you like take a breath and you come up your finger, and then you exhale as you come down your finger. And then you do the same thing as you come up and down your fingers. And the beauty of that is it also distracts children, gets some breathing, gets some calm, and even gets them kind of out of thinking about why they were upset to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, breathing is a key part for caregivers, but it's also really key to kind of teach that regulation skill to children. So, you had said something about validation, and that is
Mhm.
so right. Like, we all need to be validated. That includes our
Hmm.
coworkers, includes ourselves, and it includes children. And validation is something that people think that they totally, oh, I know what validating means. But really, what validating means is accepting and acknowledging what the other person is feeling without judgment, without trying to fix it or tell them what they need to do. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like as adults, we're quick to get to the solutions as opposed to acknowledging, yeah, I can understand why you're feeling sad. I would be sad too if I fell and I
Yeah.
scraped my
Hmm.
knee.
Yeah.
Or you might be feeling angry, Billy, because Tommy took your toy. Um, you know, I understand why you're angry. And then, that just kind of helps people to feel heard and validated in a different way as opposed to jump into solutions.
I know for myself as an adult, I need validation.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So, for myself, a part of my self care in my profession is that I try my best to communicate as much as possible. I won't necessarily share every little detail
Excuse me.
of why I'm having a hard day, but I will try my hardest to let my partner know, hey, I'm just struggling today. I'm not fully regulated. I'm very like sensory input is hard on me
Yeah.
today. Um, is it okay if I just let you know if I need support or if you check in with me throughout the day? And I find that that just takes a bit of pressure
Mhm.
and weight off of my shoulders
Hmm.
because I know I don't have to bottle it up until 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you feel like that little bit less alone.
Yeah.
Be just because you told somebody that you're not doing okay right now.
Yeah.
So I believe that ECEs have a lot of superpowers. I know that from, and I'm not just trying to just throw out compliments, but I really do believe that it's a very hard job, and I believe that it takes a very special person to do it. And I have seen the superpowers of ECEs when it comes to children and navigating, working with the parents and all of the other demands that the job brings. So while I acknowledge that you have lots of superpowers, one of the things that I realize that you can't do is that you don't read minds. So
Yeah.
if your
No.
coworker comes in and he or she is like snappy or not able to regulate themselves, or the smallest thing kind of makes them like really like react in a bit more of an extreme way, you can't read their mind and say, oh, Sally's having a hard day. You really don't know what's going on.
No.
So I love that you right away threw out communication, because communicating with your coworkers is the first line of
Hmm.
defense when you are not in a good place.
Yeah.
Um, the challenge is, how much do you share and how much do you not share?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You don't, it's also not fair to kind of put all of your things on your coworker to kind of make it their thing then too,
Yes.
that they also feel like they
Yeah.
Yeah.
need to navigate. So it's a balance. And I
Hmm.
think that it's an individual decision how you navigate that. And I do believe that we're all adults and we know how to navigate it. But some things to be mindful of is like, well, what is my relationship like with my coworker? Is
Yeah.
it someone that I've worked with very long, or is it somebody that I barely know? Um, how much do I want to share, and what's appropriate to share? I think that it's also important to think about, what you're sharing can also impact your coworker,
Yeah.
and that might not be fair.
Absolutely.
And if you are to the point where you feel really, really unable to regulate and feeling overwhelmed in life in general, that's probably a day that you need to take a day for yourself and get some things figured out. And I feel like ECEs, I had an ECE friend one time said, if there was an apocalypse, the only person that would survive is an ECE, because we don't call in sick. We're always there. We're exposed to so many germs. We go in when we have to because there's no one often to replace us.
Yeah.
And that is really challenging and really unfair, because we all have days when we're not able to navigate in the same way as we might have been even the day before. Or if we take a day to ourselves, do some work that will help us feel better, um, when we come back, we're in a different place. So it's also important to be mindful of how your mental health is, or how you're handling things,
Hmm.
and reach
Mm.
out to someone to talk to, whether it's a family member or a friend or a therapist. A little
Yeah.
shout out there for me, um, or somebody that you trust. Because we all have those moments. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a lawyer, an ECE, a social worker, a garbage man, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. We all have those days. The thing about ECEs having those hard days is that it can impact the children as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I
And
know for me, if it's appropriate, I'll tell them, like, I'm having a bit of a hard day today.
Hmm.
Like, um, um, I had mentioned with Melanie in our last episode that, like, there was a day where I was frazzled. For some reason, I was just way up here, and it was kind of near the end of the day, and I just kind of like put my hood up, and I was just like, okay, let's take a deep breath. And one of the children came up and like tapped my shoulder and was like, do you need a hug? And I said, what? And he goes, you look like you need a hug.
mm,
And I
I
said,
love that.
do I look as frazzled as I feel? And he goes, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, yes, please give me a hug.
And children feel emotions much more than they can actually describe them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they actually feel the emotions from their caregivers so intensely. So that's why it's very, very important as caregivers to mirror the regulation and to have good self-care, good
Mm-hmm.
mental health, in order to provide an environment for children where they feel safe, where they feel like their world is safe. Because even if they can't communicate their emotions, they're still feeling them.
Yes.
right? And we're feeling them from you as well.
And I find even with um like co-regulating doesn't just necessarily help them learn how to regulate themselves, but
Mhm.
also helps them learn how to help their friends regulate.
Yeah.
Like, I've been seeing more and more with my group where somebody is sad, and I almost have to, like, lately, I have to be like, you need to ask if they want a hug. I love so much that you want to make them feel better, but not everybody wants a hug when they're sad. You know what? Maybe if they don't want a hug, you can say, do you want your water bottle? Like, can I get your stuffy? Like,
Yeah.
there's more ways than just a hug to make somebody
Mhm.
feel better.
Hmm.
The other thing is that I've learned through parenting and lots of other ways is that about energies. So if I'm angry and I'm like here, and then my son is angry as well, and he comes here, then like there's nowhere for it to go but
But
up, up,
up.
up. So if my son is angry and he's here, and then I start in a place down here, he's coming down as opposed to going up.
Mm-hmm.
And a very simple explanation, but really, um, when people use calm voices, when people use rational thinking, when they are appropriate and validating and all those things, it really diffuses situations very quickly, as opposed to being up here. The other tools that therapists tell people to use around regulating emotions, of course, breathing is really important, moving your body.
Mm-hmm.
So if a child is like overwhelmed, getting them to do some jumping jacks will actually get them to regulate.
Mm-hmm.
Dancing on the spot, running. We can't run inside, I realize, but like
Yeah.
walking
Oh,
around,
we can
we
if we make the
can,
space for
Yeah.
it.
if you have the space for it, yes.
Yeah.
So
We
moving your
both
body.
have gross motor areas in our rooms because we saw the need for it, so we created
Yeah.
that space.
Yep. So once again, you guys know these things. But the last one is about something cold. So it could be like an ice pack on the side of your neck or on the back of your neck, or even, splashing a little cold water on your face or something like that. That helps to calm your nervous system. And children's nervous system they go out of whack just as well as adults
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mhm.
So all of these things that I'm talking, like children can do all of these things, us adults need to do them too. So we're feeling overwhelmed, putting an ice pack on your neck or the back of your neck, splashing your face with some cold water, breathing, moving our bodies, all of those things are going to calm our nervous system and make us really better able to navigate whatever it is that we're overwhelmed by.
And you speak of overwhelm, and I just think about situations where you're starting to get to that point and you just really can't come down because there's so much going on.
Yep.
And one thing that has been at the front of my mind lately has been a system of like tapping in and tapping out with your partners.
Mm,
And I know that's really hard, especially if you're in a room with only yourself or
yeah.
if you're in family childcare and it's just you. But there is value in it for those of us who do have partners with us, because once we get past that point of being overwhelmed and in a situation where it's too much, there's dysregulation occurs for us, and the child's becoming even more dysregulated as the moments go,
Yeah.
and our judgment is clouded, so it's harder to help co-regulate the child, and it's also really hard to make the decision to ask for support. So it's not that we've failed,
Hmm.
it's just that we have a partner,
Yeah.
and it's just so great to be able to lean on each other's strengths and to recognize that, you know, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. and you're doing a really hard job. Let's face it, it is a really hard job, and it demands, like I said, a lot of superpowers, but it also requires sometimes that you are caring for yourself and recognizing your body's cues when you are feeling like you need to tap out or that you are overwhelmed. So you you hit the nail on the head when you said that, like, you're not thinking clearly, you're not making good decisions. That is a like one of the first clues that, like, you need to have a little break, you need to kind of tap out, you need to do something to kind of regulate yourself and get your nervous system to relax.
Yeah.
Because once we kind of cross over that place, it's hard to come back. So if you imagine a child who is, well, dysregulated, but if they're overwhelmed, if they're screaming, if they're having a full on tantrum, and there's like they've gone past the point of no return where
Mhm.
they're doing things that they wouldn't normally do. Um, what we understand about that is that it takes a while to kind of come down from that.
Mhm.
But for adults, we understand the cues in our body.
Yeah.
So we understand when we are getting warm, when we are starting having a difficult time to kind of regulate and stay calm and think clearly and all of those things. Children are not always that great with noticing the things about our body that's leading up to that.
Mhm.
Um, but what we understand is that sometimes when you've gone past that point of no return, that's when you absolutely need to tap out with someone if you
Mhm.
can. But for children, they also need to have maybe some one on one quiet time
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
space that's safe, where they can come down, not necessarily in front of all of their friends either,
No.
because
Yeah.
that's a hard
Because
place to do it.
how often do we hear, "Don't look at me"?
Yeah. Like,
Because everyone's curious, everyone's concerned. There's all kinds of emotions and reasons why children are going to look at the child who's having a hard
mhm.
time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
finding those spaces in our room, which is hard,
Yes.
Tough.
but those ones where we can help, or even getting the partner who's not in the situation, gathering the children to something exciting and
Yeah.
novel
Yeah.
to distract them,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
The other thing is, there's lots of tools that you can buy now that are helpful for children to kind of regulate when they're feeling
Mhm.
overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And there's lots of books out there. I have lots of books in my day job that are about, like, the spot of anger and
Mhm.
the worry. What's it called? The worry something. But there's all kinds of books that are talk about emotion and talk about how to regulate your emotion.
I actually found a book at Chapters a few weeks ago called Feel Calm, and it was in the 0 to 2 years of age section at Chapters.
Mhm.
And there's like a few pages, very, very few words. Like the first page is a cloud with lots of things happening inside of it. It's
Mhm.
like, this is chaos. Chaos needs help to unwind. And then it's like 5 or 6 pages of lines all over the each page. And you're supposed to trace the lines to help chaos like decompress. And I don't remember if it says it in the book or not, but I tell the children you're supposed to breathe as you do like the
Yeah.
loops and the ups and downs. And I've had a couple children who have been like peak dysregulated, who historically it's very difficult to bring them down.
Mhm.
And I was able to go, like, do you want the book? And they just
Yeah.
nod and they take it and they go, we have a little quiet cubby in our
Yeah.
reading area, and they just go in there, and within like 2 3 minutes they were like, okay, here you go, I'm good. And so our daycare bought a few um, boards that have that similar finger tracing
Mm.
of different shapes and stuff that
Yeah, and
they
you can get a lot of
use.
those things on the internet, and you can laminate it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really easy to kind of there's all kinds of tools. But one of the things I'd love to talk about, if it's okay,
Mhm.
is to talk about ECE's self care. Is that
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
okay? Because
Yes,
once
please.
again, you can't pour from an empty cup, and your job is really
No.
hard. We recognize that, and you're navigating a lot of really difficult things. And if you're not in a good place yourself, then it's that much harder to
Mhm.
navigate. So I'm a little bit dramatic in the way I explain things. I'll put that out there. You guys are used to dramatics, but I just want to tell you so you're not shocked. So I like to describe, and I'm sure I didn't come up with this, by the way. I or I read it or saw it somewhere else. So, and people talk about the bucket analogy all the time, and you might have even have a book around filling up your bucket. My bucket analogy is a little bit different in that I imagine that we all carry around an imaginary bucket on the top of our heads and other people can't see it. You know what it looks like yourself, and you can feel it. Um, and so, if you were a child, um, if your childcare provider was, said, "Oh, Sally, I love the picture that you drew," that would just like really make you feel so great, and that would fill up your bucket.
Mhm.
Um, and so things like that, noticing when children do kind things, when they are, doing something extra wonderful, or they've put a lot of work into something, those things fill up children's buckets.
Mhm.
Hmm.
um, but we're not children. And I feel like other people, other adults, don't do a really good job of filling up our buckets anymore. It's like we forget to tell each other, I really like your top. Or I noticed that you are, putting a lot of energy into your painting project and it looks wonderful. We just don't really do that enough anymore. So we are responsible as adults to fill up our own buckets. So,
Mhm.
what does filling up your bucket look like? Well, it looks like self care, which might be making sure you're getting enough sleep, fueling your body with foods that make you feel good. Exercise is one of the really key things of kind of making yourself feel great, but it also means like reminding yourself to do things that bring you joy, that fill like just like fill up your soul. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves like, hey, I used to love to do whatever, and I haven't done that in a long time, and I really should do that again. It might look like a bubble bath with like your favorite book. I like to go to a movie alone. Don't judge me, please, but I do, because when I go to a movie, um, well, number one, nobody can call me in a movie. Number two, I'm not thinking about my stress or my worries in a movie. I'm distracted. I always go to a movie that's opposite of what I'm feeling. So if I'm feeling sad, I'm not going to go see The Notebook. That's not going to make me feel better. So opposite emotion, and I have unhealthy snacks. And when I leave the movie, people get a better version of me. My family gets a better version, and everyone else gets a better version as well because it just makes
Mhm.
you feel good. So here's the thing: we are able to fill up our bucket by exercising and doing fun things, connecting with our friends, doing something fun, like doing something relaxing. All of those things are really great for filling up our bucket. But in life, things take out of our buckets. So you
Mhm.
might have a disagreement with your coworker. Maybe your sister wasn't that nice to you. Maybe you're driving along and someone honks the horn and gives you the finger. That always takes out of my bucket. If you're not getting good sleep, if you're not looking after your physical health, if you have stress or worries, if you're thinking about money, if you're worried about something else going on, if you have trauma, or if you have other things happening in your life, all of these things take out of your bucket. And I think that we've all experienced things coming out of our bucket. So if your bucket is depleted, if it you haven't done enough self-care and you have a lot of things coming out, then your bucket is empty. And an empty bucket tips over really easily. So,
Mm.
what does that look like? That looks like not being able to regulate yourself. Small things that you could normally navigate are now feel like huge things. And that's when, like, your sister says something about the paint on your walls. They're, oh, I don't know about that color, and then you like have a huge reaction
Mhm.
because you can't handle small things anymore.
Hmm.
So I think that like it's as adults, it's really important for us to recognize when we haven't really been doing self-care, when our buckets are empty, in order
Mhm.
to recognize when we're not able to navigate things. For children, it is harder for us to know. It's harder for us to know when their buckets
Yeah.
are empty. We don't know what's happening at home. We don't know what their worries are. We don't know how they feel about other things happening in your room. Um, we really don't know, and we're trying really hard to figure it out. But you know a good indicator is when a child small things happen and then a child has a huge reaction. That usually means that their bucket is pretty empty and they're really struggling. So as much as I want ECEs to fill up their buckets and to be aware of their mental health and how and where you are, you also need to be aware of children's buckets and how to fill up theirs, and how to be mindful of, like, maybe this child is having an extreme reaction because there's other things happening in their life as well.
Mhm.
We're in a really interesting situation there because a lot of times, yes, filling up someone else's bucket can help fill our own.
Hmm.
But when we have such a connection to the children and we truly, truly love them,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and you see their face light up,
Yeah,
that that in itself really helps fill my bucket,
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah,
right? So it's a two-way street,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Mhm. And even sometimes it's just like a little thing of like seeing them being really excited about something, especially if you put out an activity in there or you do an experience and they're loving it. Like that fills it up. Or sometimes
Hmm.
when they just
Yeah,
want a spontaneous hug, you're just like,
absolutely.
oh. And kind of going back to what you said with, grown-ups aren't very good at filling each other's bucket up. I remember a few years ago, I got a new pair of shoes, and one of the children said, "Ah, Taylor, I love your new shoes. Do they make you go very fast?" And I'm like, I don't remember the last time somebody's asked me how fast my shoes make me. And I was like, well, I guess we better find out. But like, even like little things like that,
Yeah,
I was just
I
like, that
know.
made my day.
I know. And so, like, you're not only just helping co-regulate, you're also teaching skills about how they can fill up their buckets, how
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
can fill up other people's buckets, and
Yeah,
also recognizing when what they're doing might take away from someone else's bucket. Because as
yeah,
adults,
Yeah.
we can take out of children's buckets very quickly.
hmm,
Yeah.
And we think that it's discipline. We think that it's teaching or following the rules or whatever, but approaches can really take out of children's buckets very, very quickly.
yeah,
I think the proper terminology is guiding behaviors. Did I get that right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Positive behavior guidance. Yep,
Yeah. So I think that if your bucket is depleted as an adult and a child does something that is like maybe a little bit unsafe or whatever, your reaction may be different than if you were looking after yourself and filling up your bucket. You might handle it
yep.
quite
Hmm.
differently.
Hmm. It's like everyone perceives and responds to stressors differently, and not just on an individual person basis, but depending where we are in our own current level of regulation and
Yeah.
self-care,
Yep.
our bucket level.
Yeah, it's important to assess. And there's times that people come into my office and they flop down on my couch and are like, Kelly, my bucket is empty. Like, I know my bucket is empty. And it's interesting that people start to look at their mental health in the ways of the bucket, because there are so many things that can influence it. But,
Yeah,
and it seems quite basic. But when you really peel back the layers of how do we make ourselves feel better when we're really struggling, will we start to do some things that make us feel good? We connect with other people that are positive, that also make us feel good about ourselves. But it's also equally as important to talk to yourself in a certain manner. So
Mhm.
when you speak negatively to yourself, and we all have these voices in our head that how we talk to ourselves. So if I get up in the morning and I look in the mirror and say, "Oh, your shirt, you do not look good today," then I'm going to feel that way all day. So,
Mm.
Yeah.
we as therapists, we talk a lot to people around be mindful of how you speak to yourself. Be mindful of the messages that you're giving yourself, because how you talk to yourself is how you feel about yourself. So there's times that we have to even, say things if we don't necessarily believe it right away. So I'll give you an
Yeah.
example, and I use this example quite often. So if you when in the morning and I'm trying to get my children ready for school, my husband goes to work earlier than me. It's a stressful time in my house. I find myself feeling overwhelmed because I have to pack lunches and make sure that the kids are getting dressed and brushing their teeth and getting on a bus, and I'm trying to get ready and get my all my lunch packed and all the things. And I get these voices come in my head like, you're going to be late. You're always late. Your manager is going to know that you're late again. Like she's soon going to say
Mhm.
something to you. And then, all of these crazy things are coming at me at one time. And then I have two boys, and they are 11 and 14, and they're saying, "Mom, mom, 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 he did this. Mom, I want this. Mom, can I have this? Mom, my toast is not done enough. And it's like, "Mom, mom, mom." And then I have all these thoughts, and I'm like putting the stuff on the sandwiches and trying to get out the door. And I have these thoughts like, my husband does not help me enough. Like how he's just gone off to work, got his coffee on his way, like all of these overwhelming thoughts. And
Mhm.
then I find myself getting a little bit like short with the children, like, stop saying mom, you're gonna have to wait. And then like that tone just really I don't like it. And I
Mhm.
Yeah.
noticed it. And then I'm like, you're gonna be late. You can't get your stuff together. And so when that happens, I remind myself, um, Kelly, you get out of the house every day. If you're late, it's not the end of the world. And then I start saying, you got this. You can do this. You
Mhm.
do this every morning. And then I notice that I start to calm down and I'm able to figure things out and I respond to my children differently. And then I might
Mhm.
throw on like the most annoying song ever, like, "Hey Google, play like Pocket Full of Sunshine." And the boys are like, "Oh, mom." But the next thing you know, we're all bopping along and I'm making sandwiches still. And we get out of the house and we all have a smile on our face. So a long-winded kind of example of how you talk to yourself is how you feel about yourself.
Mm.
Reminding yourself that you can do hard things, that saying the opposite of what you're feeling. You got this, even though at the moment I was thinking, I don't got this. It's really, really important because you're tricking your brain, you are calming your nervous system, and then you're better able to handle stress and things that come your way. So I remind parents all the time of the duck analogy. So parenting is really hard work. And I like to show my children that I'm a duck. So a duck just floats across the water ever so calmly, able to handle things. All the little duckies are following behind. But what we know about ducks is that just below the surface, their legs are paddling like mad
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
have to in order to keep going. So I like to show my children calm and then they're calm. And sometimes I get into my car and they're in the back seat and they're arguing and they're bickering. And sometimes I say, I'm a duck, I'm a duck. And my children are saying, Mom, why are you saying you're a duck? And I'm saying, because I have to remind myself sometimes. But like, parenting, being a childcare provider, being a friend, being a partner, being all of those things requires a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And if you throw in, like maybe people have stress around health worries, maybe people are struggling with money. Maybe people are dealing with trauma or abuse, or losing someone that they care about. Maybe they are not enjoying their job. There are a lot of things that happen to us in our lives, and nobody is able to really escape it. We all have things at different times that impact us, some things bigger than others. But, and so some days we're doing great, other days we're struggling more. And being mindful of, on the days that you're struggling more, how do you right the ship? How do you get through your day?
Hmm.
So, like, you guys came up with some great suggestions about talking to your working partner. um, you know well, thinking about your bucket, doing your self-care things, and if all else fails, it's okay to take a day for you, because everyone will get a better version of you in the end. And if you see me at the movie alone, you'll know that I'm having a rough time, and I'm trying to right my own ship.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
so I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that, or any questions?
Well, you kind of answered one, but I still want to see if there's anything else when you talked about changing how you're talking to yourself in high
Mm.
stress emotions.
Yeah.
Because one of the questions that we had was, um, do you have any recommendations for how to handle high stress situations when you're in ratio, when you might not have that support and have the ability to tap out and regroup?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And yeah.
if you do have a partner, you can still stay in ratio if they are engaging the children in maybe a group activity, whether that's like a little dance thing, or reading books, or whatever, something that maybe, like, I think, Sonia, you said, like, something really interesting and fun
Mm.
that might engage all of the children in one area, so that maybe you can go to a separate part of the room, not out of the room if you're in ratio,
Mhm.
in order to just take a few minutes to kind of use some of the strategies that we talked about, like the ice pack, or moving your body, or deep breathing, or listening to a little bit of music or something, to just start to calm your nervous system. The other thing, that if you really are feeling overwhelmed, hopefully there is someone that can maybe come in, and maybe someone who's afloat, who can give you a little break. Maybe you could switch out with the kitchen person for a little while, just to do something different, just to kind of calm yourself. It's really hard to navigate that when you are in ratio, and there are people that work alone, and there are people who don't get to take breaks. I mean, many
Yeah.
ECEs don't get
Mhm.
to take breaks. I can't even imagine how you navigate that. But maybe even, you know using cognitive behavioral therapy is about, like, talking to yourself and calming yourself, and using those tools to kind of remind yourself that you can do things, or to be a duck, or whatever you need to do. But maybe then, when the children have a nap, maybe that's a time that you can do something to that kind of helps you relax and calm your body a little bit more. um, I think that, I've never been an ECE, and I've never worked in childcare, like, services in that way. But I think that ECEs are really good at suppressing what they're dealing with in
Yeah.
the moment, in order to get through until a little bit later. I mean,
In the best
we're
interest of the children.
in the best interest of the children, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I totally understand why you do that, and why you have to do that. That's not
Mhm.
necessarily always healthy to do that,
Yeah.
but there are times that you don't have much of a choice. What I would say is, if you're in a situation where you do have to suppress things, then it's really important that when your day is over, to make sure that you are focusing heavily on how to de-stress, how to calm your nervous system, how to relax, how to fill up your bucket, because you need to recharge your batteries and rejuvenate, in order to be able to feel like you can do this work the next day.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
Right.
Yeah.
very true. Um, I was also hoping that you might have some recommendations on resources for educators to help support our well-being and ability to
Mm.
self-regulate overall. Um, I know for myself and Taylor, we're very fortunate to work at a center that has access to EAP services.
Right.
Mhm.
And I personally utilize LifeWise's Warm Line
Mhm.
and their group um, sessions, group support sessions. I've used Doorways. I've
Mhm.
gone to the PAU, the at the new, well, the old and the new
Yeah.
hospital.
Yeah.
Like, they're all available. And before you answer that question for me, a thought came to my head of one time that I called the warm line. I was really, really struggling with having a group with big emotions,
Mm.
and then my big emotions, and not being able to
Yeah.
just find that calm
Yeah.
and help them find that calm. And one of the suggestions was to have like a basket or a box
Mm.
of very quick, easy, low stress, but novel and fun activities to just pull out at
Yeah.
the moment with the children.
Yeah.
And that was like s-
That's a
such a
beautiful idea. That's a
such a
wonderful idea.
simple thought, but at the same time, like, I wasn't thinking that straight in the
Yeah.
moment. And it was just so great. So,
Almost like
like,
an emergency
are there
box. A box to take out in case of emergencies, like break this down
yes.
in case of emergency.
Yeah.
Have this prepared, ready to go. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you need to engage them quick. Take this out. I love that
Yeah.
idea. That's a wonderful idea. Like,
So other than those resources like LifeWise Doorways,
yeah.
what are some others that you know
So
of?
I know that RUA is a free counseling service.
Never heard of that.
RUAH, I think it is. I don't know how
Okay.
long their wait list is. NL Health
Right.
Services has free counseling as well.
Hmm.
Some places have EAP programs and some don't. Um, the other thing is the Janeway Family Services Center have a lot of programs and they have a lot of free groups. So some of our biggest stress comes from our own lives. So if you
Yep.
have children who are struggling, if you're struggling as a parent, if you have other things happening, um, that is going to quickly deplete your bucket and make it very hard to do other things. So, in my
Right.
own personal experience, my oldest son was struggling in kindergarten, and his teacher was kind of really saying like his behavior is not good. And I actually went to my my favorite ECE that really raised him up all through being young and said like, have you seen these things as well? And she was really honest with me and said, I can understand what some of the things that the teacher is saying. And I was like, I appreciate your honesty and I'm going to take this really seriously. So I actually did the program. It's called Parenting Your Young Child, and it changed my life. It really did. It gave me lots of strategies. It helped. It was a place where I could talk openly, and I started navigating how I parented very differently. Um, and then my husband noticed how well the children were responding to me in all areas. And he was like, I need these skills. And so he did the course himself. And
Oh, I
he
love that.
he noticed that it really changed his life. My youngest son has anxiety, and you can't be a therapist for your own child. It doesn't work that way. They're your mom. So I did the parenting your child with anxiety program, and I learned some additional strategies that I didn't necessarily think about. So
Hmm.
there's also a program that the JMA offers called Strongest Families, where
Yes.
there's a person that calls you like once a week and gives you strategies on things that you can do in your own home. So if you're, ECE's therapists were the same in that you have a certain set of skills, but you can't really use those skills as well on your own children in your own family setting
No.
because they don't see you that way.
Yeah.
So what I suggest is that reach out to as many services as possible. I recommend these programs to everybody, and I did them myself, and it made me a better parent. It made me a better therapist. It taught me things that I thought that I knew how to do things. It taught me more things, and it when you feel like you have some skills, it does definitely lower your stress, because you have something tools in your toolbox that you can use with your children. So, maybe some ECs are not struggling with their own children as a form of stress. Maybe they're struggling with trauma. There's a trauma program that NL Health Services offers. There's all kinds of different programs. Maybe, you've had alcohol in your family, and there's Al Anon programs. Like, we owe it to ourselves to get all the support we need if there's things that are affecting us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, and I realize that not everybody can pay for services. There are a number of places that also offer pro bono as well.
Okay.
So sometimes you need to ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. The I'm so grateful that you
Mhm.
were so excited to join us.
So excited.
And I've my mind has really brought in a lot of what you've talked about, and I love it. And I love that we made such a connection to the children
Yeah.
and how our own self-care can roll over into their lives.
Yeah.
And as old as the bucket theory is, I really appreciate you explaining that again, because we
Mm-hmm.
can always use those reminders.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I never heard of the duck thing, but that is amazing. And
You love
I adore
ducks. I was
ducks.
gonna say you love ducks.
I do.
I'm never going
See
to
my
think
duck?
of ducks the same again. Oh, yeah, I see a duck. Yes. So, we owe it to ourselves to give ourselves the best chance to navigate our lives. And there's nobody is perfect and happy and on top of our game every single day. That's not possible.
No.
And it's so, like I said, it's okay to have a day where you just kind of laze around. But what's important is if you notice that that day kind of turns into 2 days or 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
that's when it's really important to kind of do something to kind of root you out of there. That's when
Yeah.
you might need to talk to a friend, you might need to talk to somebody, get professional help, or, find a way to kind of right the ship. If my husband and I have a little argument, he's like, maybe you should go to a movie. And I'm like, that is offensive. That means that you think that I'm not handling myself very well. But like, you know, relationships that we have with either our partners or our friends or our families, they're quite complicated, and they impact us too, and their mental health impacts us.
Mm-hmm.
Mental health, and I
Yeah.
use the word mental health in a very broad term because we all have mental health. We don't all
Hmm.
have mental illness, but we all have mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes navigating our own mental health is impacted by how other people around us are navigating theirs. That includes coworkers. You spend
Mm-hmm.
as much time with your coworkers as you do your friends or your family. So, sometimes learning some strategies and sharing them with others, sometimes kindness goes a really, really long way. My love language is that I like to bake, and I like to treat people with my baking expeditions. And that's how that fills up my bucket, like to see someone, enjoy something that I made for them. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
my language. And it's interesting because my youngest son has a lot of anxiety on days that he really struggles to get to school. We buy a cake pop for his teacher at Starbucks, and he goes in as happy as he could be to give her that cake pop because that's his love language too.
I love
So
That's
that.
so
like we need
great.
we need to do we need to be mindful of how we navigate ourselves so we can help others. Um,
Yeah.
I sometimes I get in bed, and I take a deep breath, and I'm like, oh, today was really hard. Um, I felt like I wasn't very present with the kids. I was a bit snappy, and I'm like, such a horrible day. I can definitely do better than this. And then I think, instead of going down that pity party kind of, rabbit hole where you start talking negative to yourself, I like to say, you know, uh, I can do better. How can I do better? So then I think about like a morning that was really great in my house. And I'm like, oh yeah, they loved it when I made pancakes. And I took the pancakes and I flipped them up in the air and they caught them on their plate. And I played that really annoying song. And, we did all these funny things. And I was dancing around the kitchen. And even though they thought I was super annoying and they made fun of my dancing and that I like salt and pepper, um, they laughed and we had a great start to our day. Um, so it's no different for our families if we have children, and it's no different for the children in our rooms. Your job is really important. I thank you for the job that you do. It shouldn't be underestimated how what an impact that you have on the child on our children. Um, but you also impact how your children feel in your room and how you feel yourself. So if there's a
Mhm.
day that you're like, gee, I could have handled that situation better, it's okay. Dust it off and then go in with a different kind of approach the next day. Children are very resilient and they respond so well to positive energy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Turning that reflection into something positive is
Absolutely.
it's like an overarching theme in almost all of our topics
Like,
that we're
yeah.
going to approach.
Yeah.
And yeah, um yeah, hopefully we won't have to see you at the movies too often though.
Yes, it's
Well,
true.
sometimes I go to the movies because I want to, and I
Okay, so if there's people with you, we're like, okay, she's
sometimes I
Yes.
take people, sometimes I don't.
good. Sometimes you
Um,
don't.
but I just feel like for
Being
me,
proactive in your self-care.
always, always, and
Yeah.
there are times that I notice that I just need some alone time. Um,
Hmm.
Mhm.
but in my world, I do a lot of talking. I talk to a lot of people who go through a lot of really hard things, and that has an impact. And
Yes.
in order for me to do my work, I know that I need to really be aware of my own mental health. And if I'm
Yeah.
Hmm.
struggling, I will actually cancel seeing my clients because it's not fair to them if I can't give them what they might need. And it's
Yeah.
not really, and I'm not trying to tell all CECs to take time off work. I'm going to get in trouble for that. But be mindful of what you need because
Mhm.
really and truly, it's hard to do your job if you're not in the right space. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we haven't covered?
I
No,
think
I
we
think that
covered
was
it all.
fabulous.
It was amazing.
I
Thank you
know
so
you
Yes,
guys were.
much.
thank
You guys were filling
you.
up my bucket. You're filling up my bucket.
Well, you filled up ours
Yes.
too because just having that the validation and the
Mhm.
recognition, honestly, like so many ECEs are going to be so happy watching this episode, I think.
I think so too.
Anyway, ladies, I feel like we've come to the end.
Yeah, so all the appreciation that that Kelly showed for our profession, I really do think that's going to help fill the buckets of Newfoundland ECEs and ECEs
Mhm.
all over YouTube who watch us.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of filling our own buckets, especially, uh, I I really do believe that one of the easiest ways for us as ECEs to fill our own buckets is to fill the children's buckets.
Yeah, I agree. I and it wasn't really until this conversation that I started to really think about all the little
Yeah,
ways that
it was
we
like a
fill
revelation.
theirs and they fill ours. And it's just
Yeah.
stuff that we do every day.
Hmm.
But it's like, oh yeah, that does feel good.
Yeah. And I thought about like the example of her son when he's having a day with a morning of high anxiety and then he brings in that cake pop just to cheer up his teacher a little bit, and that little bit of joy that she shows
Mm-hmm.
in his presence just fills his bucket.
Yeah.
So when we do something kind or say something kind and validating towards the children about, oh, that was so kind. You picked up Susie's teddy bear and gave it back to her.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're just like brimming with pride.
Yep.
And that feels so good for us too. So I just think about when we have children in our rooms with differing developmental levels. And for example, in our classroom, we have the push soap dispensers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a toddler room currently, and we there's young twos, and then there's threes.
Yes.
Once they're 2.5, they can usually get that button after they've been with us for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
But right at the beginning of their daycare career, that's
Nope, they
not
cannot do
happening,
that button.
right? It's either strength or coordination. It's too much. It's too
Mm-hmm.
hard. So we get overwhelmed, or I do, as an ECE with those tiny tasks. They need help with these things. You're running all around doing this little
Mm-hmm.
task, but what if we relied on those strengths of those older or more further developed in certain skills
Mm-hmm.
children? And that will take such a load off of us. Yeah, it just seems like a tiny little thing, but you multiply that tiny
Well,
little
I was
thing
gonna
by
10.
50
Well, I
in
was
the
gonna
run
say
of a day,
like 10 just for snack
or
alone.
yeah, then you're taking a lot of pressure off of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That is not, it might not be filling your bucket necessarily until you see the excitement when one friend helps another friend.
Yeah.
Both of the children are going to be happy about it,
Yeah.
but it's definitely not taking away from our bucket. It's keeping our
No.
bucket
Mm.
level at least.
It's keeping it level. It's keeping
Yeah.
it
But just seeing that
manageable.
joy and then those connections, those relationships starting to form,
Mm-hmm.
that fills my bucket.
Yeah. No, the other thing that kind of really came to my mind was uh when we were talking about mirroring and how it's not just the positive things that the children mirror, when we help co-regulate or when we help uh demonstrate helping each other, stuff like that,
Mhm.
but also the negative parts.
Yeah.
Like, and if you come into work on a Monday and you go, "Ah, it's Monday, I hate Mondays. It's, it's going to be crazy because everybody's been home all weekend and blah, 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 blah." And if that's the energy that I have when I walk into that playroom, then they're going to start feeding off of it. And they're going to start having those types of reactions to things, just like ugh, because that's all I'm showing. That's all I'm
Yeah.
demonstrating. That's all I'm giving them. And which, as she says, takes from, like, kind of as you said, the opposite is it takes from the bucket
Yep.
because there's no positive interaction.
Mhm.
It's because if I'm already starting the day dysregulated because of, it's Monday, I'm less likely to be able to regulate myself and in turn help the children co-regulate in an
Yeah.
effective way. And I liked how she was talking about switching her internal dialogue.
Mhm.
Um and I kind of enjoyed how she didn't necessarily say that it's just positive thinking because you can't always do positive thinking. Sometimes all it can be is reassurance, like self reassurance.
Yep.
Like, okay, I can do it. Like, yeah, I'm tired. Yes, I am whatever, but you know what? Like I can. We did it yesterday. I can do it today. And take that and away we go. Yeah, like there's some times where I have bigger feelings for the day just because of personal things. And sometimes it's just a matter of the okay, you know what? You go in there, you can put on a mask for 2.5 hours, and then it's your break time. Okay, I can wear a mask for a couple hours until my break time. And then once my break comes, I'll go find a quiet space to be alone, and I'll let the mask fall and I'll let myself feel the feelings. And then once my break is done, it's like, okay, now I have a couple hours until my lunch. I can wear a mask for a couple hours. And I find it takes away the pressure of having to wear the mask all day, is if I
Mm-hmm.
internally break it up into shorter time frames.
Yeah.
And also utilizing time when you're in the playroom when it is available, like nap time. I don't understand, for me personally, the people who do not like nap time. They're like, I don't want to be in a room with nap time. I'm like, what are you talking about? That is my favorite time of day, almost, because they get to recalibrate because they're sleeping. They get a fresh start.
Yeah.
And I find I get that fresh start too because it's the quiet, it's the time to take a deep breath, especially like you said in the toddler room where I was in the toddler room for a few years where it's not just the big things that they need help with. It's everything. They
Mm-hmm.
need help opening their water, they need help getting into the bathroom, they need help getting soap, they need help turning on the water. And that can be a lot when there's just one little one, let alone when you have 10.
Yeah.
And so I just like nap time was my favorite, to just take a deep breath and be like, okay, like when they get up, it's a fresh start for everyone.
Yeah, and it's like at nap time, it's not like it's a break because
No.
we're constantly cleaning, we're constantly doing
Mm-hmm.
observations, we're constantly reflecting and doing planning and preparing, but you're not being pulled in all different directions
No.
by 10 little voices,
Yeah.
right? One thing that you were talking about um indirectly was just like our energy that we bring in first thing in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was I was thinking about next month our topic is going to be family connections
Yes.
and how that energy affects the child's drop off and in
Yeah.
turn affects the parent or the caregiver's
Mm-hmm.
entire day because they're wondering did my child's emotions turn around,
Yes.
right? So I think that the family connection topic is actually going to be really helpful for us to recognize the importance of how our energy and our attitudes affects not just the children but the families,
Yeah, I think
because
you're
we're
right.
all one big team. They might not be present for the entire day,
Okay,
but
but yeah, no, it's we need to work together for it to be
yeah,
success.
yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited for next month, Family Connections. And hopefully we will see more and more people join in the podcast with us, viewing, and we'll see you then.
Bye.